Mulchan Radio and the creators of the Hangin web show. It's the legend of the Traveling Tardis. Look inside and behind the scenes at some of the most enduring and beloved science fiction worlds. Step inside the doors to a world that is bigger, brighter, and beyond imagination. And now, join your host, Christian Basel, as you become a part of the legend of the Traveling Tardis.
Hello again, fellow Whovians. This is Christian Basel, the owner, creator, and operator of the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show, and the little guy, the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, who does the conventions out there. I want to welcome you all back. For those of you just joining us, I want to welcome you to our show where we talk Doctor Who every single week. We drop a show on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Krypton Radio, on iTunes. You can check us out anywhere on the net. Today, we are talking about the Chibnall Conundrum. This whole episode is going to be on the showrunner himself, the current showrunner of Series 11, and the man who would be the guy who would bring out the first female Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. We're talking about Chris Chibnall. But I don't want to do this alone. I got some friends with me. Returning with us is our special guest, Mark Muncy of Eerie, Florida.
Hey, welcome.
How you doing there, Mark? Welcome back there.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Doing well.
Happy New Year. And I've seen you on Instagram a lot. If you follow on Mark on Eerie, Florida on Instagram, he's been doing a lot of tours out there. What have you been doing recently?
Well, we're finishing up research for the third book in our, Eerie, Florida, Freaky Florida. We still can't officially announce the title yet, but just know it's going to the publisher this month. So we're finalizing some last-minute pictures, getting some last-minute research. I'll be speaking at the Southwest Florida Paranormal and UFO Conference this coming weekend down in Fort Myers. And then I'll see everybody hopefully at Sci-Fi Bartow in February.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for that one here. And we've got a convention announcement that we've been doing the last two shows, but I want to do this at the end of the show. And we now have our special guest. She's been biting the bullet of getting onto the show and say, Christian, are you going to finally have me on? And Christian, I keep on saying, okay. And then just scheduling and things have not been the way that it sounds. But I'm so proud that she's come on here for this episode. I'm talking about Neisha Mulchan. For those of you who may not be familiar with her work, you probably seen her at the conventions in Florida at San Diego Comic-Con. She is, and I don't want to get this wrong, the creator and CEO of Diversely Geek. Is that correct?
Yes, you have it right.
Okay. So for some of our friends who are not familiar with Diversely Geek, tell us how that all started and tell us what it's all about, because I love this.
Oh, and you've been with me, I think, since the beginning, I would say, right, Christian? Yeah. And hello, everyone. It's so amazing to finally be on the show. Like, we just literally have been trying for months to make this happen. And Christian and I met years and years and years back when we both started in this world because of our love for Doctor Who. So that should tell you. So I'm actually, for a living, I am a family practice and neurology specialist. I'm a nurse practitioner, so I do it for a living. And back in the day, I just wanted to do some research into the relevance of embracing who you are, embracing your geek side, because I'm a passionate, very self-professed science nerd geek of every kind. And so I started to do the research, and to do the research, I created some social media platforms, and it was so well received. And because I'm such a huge Whovian and so many other things, just really got engaged and had great conversations with people. And those social media platforms from research grew into Diversely Geek, where we really support a message of mental wellness, self-acceptance, embracing your inner geek and just expressing that in your everyday life. And now we have gone from this little group that we started out with to a global organization. We're social media, community media based, but we're also a nonprofit. So we do a lot. Our fundraising is to benefit other organizations that are based in the fandom industry, fans who are going through struggles in their life, fans who are trying to get their books published, fans who are trying to get shows up in the air. So we do a lot of behind the scenes works, and I think a lot of people would have probably seen me on panels with you actually, yeah. Christian, in the past. And I had just spent an entire year in the con scene, which I'm going to be doing a series of podcasts on coming up, where I explain what it was like to travel the major con scene for an entire year. So I'm excited.
I got to ask this question. Of all the things that you've done, and I don't think San Diego Comic-Con would, I think it's in the top 10, but what are you most proud of with Diversely Geek? What's the one thing that just says, God, this is the reason why I do this?
I'll tell you, and it might surprise you. So
go ahead.
It's the day that someone messages me or picks up a phone and says, you saved my life. Because it's happened. Yeah, it's happened. I do a lot of behind the scenes counseling because I am a medical provider, right? So I can. So I also do a lot of behind the scenes helping people who have medical conditions and don't know how to handle them. So I kind of do a little bit of that too, because we are also a wellness organization. So, I had that happen recently. We all do this when we're doing something in the fandom world. It's hard to keep going, because it's a struggle. But then when you question it, someone comes back and says, I wanted to tell you, without the words that you wrote, or without listening to you on that panel, or without listening to that show, I'm not sure I would have known how to, to move on to the next step in my life. And it happened again today. So I think of all of the things, all of the people we've met together, and the entertainers and the show and the interviews, all of it pales in comparison to when I have that contact with someone who I can leave an impression on their life. So,
and it's an incredible feeling, and I've had that feeling a couple of times. I don't run an organization, but there have been people who just PM me or text me or just let me know, they're not doing too well, whether they're having a medical issue, anxiety, something. They'll just let me know, and what I've done in the last couple of years with my own Facebook page is I said, you know what, I'm going to stop the negativity, and I try my best. It's not the most successful project that I've done, but when I a couple of years ago I made a big decision to say, listen, I've seen too much stuff on the internet, and I can see where, if you've seen one meme or see an article and then that stuff piles up, it gets into your head and there's no release. I wanted people to know that they could come to me, and I have a lot of friends out there who have, they just PM me and talk to me. And sometimes it'll just be somebody who just needs attention for just a moment, and maybe not just, they're not going to spill out their life story on you. They just want to know, hey, everything's going to be all right, everything's fine. I'm still your friend, and if things hit the fan, I want to let you know. You are special. You are important. You are loved. Don't ever forget that moment. Focus on it, and just remember, when the cards are down, hey, I'm going to be right there behind you, not only to stand behind you and prop you up, but to lift you up if you really need it. And
that is exactly the focus of why you and I are friends.
Yeah.
And have remained as close as we are, but it's completely the focus of what we do with DG. It's 100%.
Because myself, I've been on, several times, but just more recently, I've been into those dark spaces where you don't think you can climb out of. And if you need help, folks, just, reach out to a friend, reach out to somebody you can trust. Don't be into that dark space, because I've seen it before. It is a terrible and disgusting space. And if you are in there for too long, you will find that you never come out. And that, I want to make people aware, there's always help from somewhere. If you can just call an 800 line to a friend, just do it and try, don't put yourself down there. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve to feel bad. You should feel like you should be able to geek out with anything that you want to, and friends should be there to say, hey, cool, just encourage you on with that. And I think I'm just rambling on, but but this is what I believe, by definition, just for my friends to understand, this is what Diversely Geek is to me, to all about out there. Yeah. And especially with everything that is going on society-wise, and seeing friends that are really hurt just because of social media. When I grew up, bullying was something that you saw on A Christmas Story. The only way to fight back with a bully is to punch him in the face twice as hard and deal with it. But with cyberbullying and everything, it's really, really just, it can weigh on somebody's mind, and that's the worst thing.
That's absolutely correct. And with having a social media platform, especially when you have a community like the Whovian community, you really do hear stories and you do get to touch people's lives in a way that you probably could never have imagined. And people, I absolutely love what you just said, and it's so much in tune and in keeping with our philosophy. And me as a human being is my philosophy personally. So, yay!
Well, thank you, and especially and you know as well. When I don't do it, I try not. I want to invite everybody to do to come by the booth, but some of my friends have come up and say, Christian, I just need to go behind your booth and just sit for a minute. I want you to talk to me, so I will do that. I will try my best when we're out there and such like that. But without further ado, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on over things. But if just real quick, anybody, if you feel that you're down and out, get some help, get whatever you can do to get it. You are important. You are loved. You are special. Don't ever forget that. This show will remind you that you are an individual who is important in this world. And there will be people who will be unhappy if you ever decide to leave it. You are a wonderful and special person. Just some people got reminded of you.
Most welcome to reach out to Diversely Geek.
Please, yes. Reach out to Neisha if you need any help. If all the chips are down, she is a wonderful person to reach out to. And I've reached out to her a couple of times. And you reached out to me. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about Chris Chibnall before I went on to that slide there. Sorry about that. Before I took this show down to a new low. Again, folks, Neisha, I know you're new to this, so I think you've heard previous episodes. 1 to 10 TARDISes, traveling TARDISes, 1 being whatever, to 10 being the best of all things. We're just rating Chris Chibnall as a showrunner for Series 11. And because you are our special guest for your first time here, Neisha, give me a number between 1 and 10. What do you think about Chris?
Decimal points included.
Well, yeah, people have cut the TARDIS in half, so I'm just like,
oh my goodness. I actually have been averaging him at about like a 7.2.
Okay.
Yeah,
TARDIS
I know.
And a run or something like that. There, Mark. No, go ahead.
I gotta go no higher than a 6.
No higher than a 6. Okay. And of course, the lowest number will begin the discussion, but we've got to pay some bills. When we return, our discussion about Chris Chibnall as showrunner for Doctor Who. When we return, please stay tuned for the legend of the Traveling TARDIS and continue to become part of the legend.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Every year, tens of millions of people flock to Florida for its sunny beaches and world-famous tourist attractions. Most never learn about the strange and unusual locations just off the beaten path. From the UFOs of Gulf Breeze to Robert the Haunted Doll in Key West, learn about the myths, monsters, and legends from the dark side of the Sunshine State with author Mark Muncy and illustrator Carrie Schultz in their books Eerie, Florida and Freaky Florida from the History Press. Find them at eerieflorida.com or wherever books are sold.
Hello, sweeties. I'm Krystal Moore. I play the Doctor in fan series Doctor Who Velocity. You're listening to The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show.
And ladies and gentlemen, fellow Whovians, welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show. My name's Christian Basel. I'm here with special guest Neisha Mulchan from Diversely Geek and Mark Muncy from Eerie, author of Eerie, Florida. And we've already given our Traveling TARDISes. I haven't even told Sage yet what my rating is there. But before we go into the discussion, I knew I just skipped around everything. Sage, bring out the Who Knew News.
Okay, my first bit of news is about the National Television Awards for the BBC. Doctor Who is in 2 different spots. They're up for Best Drama in the drama category, and Jodie Whittaker is up for Best Drama Performance.
Sweet.
Now, the nice thing about the National Television Awards that the BBC does is there's a public vote also, and that stays open until January 22nd, 2019, which is the day of the awards. So if anybody wants to vote, you can go to www.nationaltvawards.com and vote for your Doctor Who.
And we'll put that up on. We'll put that link up later on the Traveling TARDIS. So yes, please vote for Jodie. Yes, please vote for your favorite sci-fi TV show, Doctor Who. Let them know of our love and support for all you Whovians out there. Anything else in the news?
Yes, if you're missing some Doctor Who because you know that it won't be returning until 2020, there are more than 500 classic Doctor Who episodes that are going to be streaming on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have done this before, and it was a great success. So it started this past weekend. The classic seasons that are aired were from between 1963 to 1989, and that features the first 7 Doctors. And for fans in the U.S., U.K., and Canada, Twitch is hosting a giveaway each week of the event with a grand prize trip to London Comic-Con.
Nice.
Isn't that sweet? So if you
okay, everybody, see ya. I'm gonna fly out. That show's over now. Thank you very much. Sage, for people who may not be familiar with Twitch, what is that?
Twitch is a streaming platform, and you can go and find independent creators. There are artists who show how they draw their art on Twitch. There are folks who do gaming on Twitch, and of course, you can do some live streaming. So you can watch. So part of the thing that's fun about watching the Doctor Who Classic episodes on Twitch is you can be involved in the chat with all of the other people around the globe who are also watching.
Sweet. I'm going to check that out over there. I don't even know what Twitch is. That's why I I've heard of it so much, but just there's so much out there. There's Amazon, there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's this, there's that, Vudu, all that stuff out there.
It's the younger, hipper YouTube.
Is the younger, hipper YouTube? Okay, yeah. That's a good definition.
Yeah, well, and Twitch is partnered with Amazon, so
it is absolutely. Mm-hmm. I actually get on Twitch now and again, Christian. You got to catch up.
You get twitchy a little bit later here.
Yes.
Sage, what else do we have in the news?
Get with the times. Well, I don't know if anybody had noticed, but there is a TARDIS instruction manual that is out there, and they have now included the new Doctor's TARDIS, the latest version that's in there. It's a manual that covers the console with fully labeled, detailed schematic diagrams. How cool is that?
Yes.
So if you want to know more about that, that's out there for those who are missing a little bit of the Doctor. Also, they put out 3 original novels, so you can still have plenty while you're missing everything on TV. And the other thing that actually Mark had mentioned earlier was from Big Finish, and it's War Master that battles the 8th Doctor for Big Finish, and that will be coming out in July of 2019 this year, and everybody is looking forward to that one. And Sir Derek Jacobi reprises the role of the War Master, and that is going to be fun to look forward to.
Mark, I hate you. I envy you so much because I have not been able to catch up on anybody. I think I took like a 6-month sabbatical just because I can't afford it.
Well, I've been listening to the War Master stuff. I mean, they brought him in Gallifrey originally, and then they did the War Master series with him. I'm so sad we didn't get to have the War Master versus the War Doctor because of John Hurt's passing. I know they had planned that, and that's what's become this one, the one that's coming up with Paul McGann. So I'm very excited about that. 2 of my favorite actors going to be battling it out. The last War Master series, the second one, I guess, just came out recently. And then this one's coming in June, and they already recorded, I guess, the 4th one. So there's going to be 4 box sets of War Master, and I think that's probably all they're going to be able to drag Derek Jacobi out for, but that's pretty crazy.
Now, I think, Neisha, you've heard Big Finish before as well. Would you two... Now, there is a new 3rd Doctor out there, and I think it's Tim Traylor.
Yeah.
And if you guys never heard Big Finish... you definitely got to check it out, because I actually did an interview with Katie Manning, and I asked her, I said, listen, do you think, would you be able to do a Big Finish without John? And she said, I'm paraphrasing, if he didn't sound anything like John, I would never have done it. And he's spot on, not only with the voice, but he also has the mannerisms of John Pertwee, the way he handled the Third Doctor. You can almost say, oh my God, this is John.
Yeah, that guy they got doing Nicholas Courtney's Brigadier is spot on too. So that era is, reborn on the audios.
The reason why I've asked that is if somebody could actually impersonate, and I know that's a tough voice that he's got, John Hurt's voice, would you be accepting to somebody continuing the Ward Doctor?
Ooh, that'd be tough. He's a tough act to follow. If they could do it right, yeah, but I think it's kind of cool that they're letting Paul McGann do the early days, before he regenerates into the War Doctor.
Right.
So, early stages of the war.
So I'm excited for that. Totally excited for that. Because that's such a missing part of your psyche. And you want to know these things, so.
Yeah, the War Doctor series was really good, too, with John Hurt, so it's cool that we're getting this.
Well, we've always asked for the longest time, this said, when BBC goes, when they go into their silent mode for a while, and they said, listen, why don't we make Paul McGann a summer thing? Whereas, the original series can either be spring or winter or fall. But Paul McGann could have his series and be a summer thing on TV. And I'm just like, so people who really want the Doctor Who can have Paul continue on, and then he can have the series that he deserved. I know he's got tons of audio, but I think it would be so cool if we could see him on the TV there. But I'm going to digress there. Anything else in the news there, Sage?
That is all of my Who Knew news for this week, so you can chib-chat away.
You got it there. Also, you heard the commercial for Doctor Who Velocity with Krystal Moore. She's actually technically the first Doctor before Jodie took on the role of the first female Doctor in the fan series Doctor Who Velocity. You got to check it out. This past Christmas, not only did they drop an audio play, they also dropped a visual about the Time War approaching Earth. I haven't seen it in full yet, but you do got to check it out. The series is wonderful. I think she's up to 3 episodes now, and they do have a classic villain. They have the Daleks and Davros all together. So you got to check it out for yourself. The videos are like 10 minutes each. Easy to just binge watch, but you're going to have a really, really great ride with Krystal's show. Speaking of shows, we're getting back. We're going to be reviewing Chris Chibnall as showrunner. And I believe, Mark, did you say you had a solid or low 6?
Yeah.
Tell us the good, the bad, and the Chibnall.
Well, I think, honestly, it mostly goes back to the season. We had some ups, we had some downs. I mean, I think the only reason it gets above a 5, in my opinion, is because the ups were really good. And that's what salvages the whole season. There were some very bad lows. I think it was a lot of setup with no payoff almost every episode. You kept expecting, that's going to come back. Oh, no, that's not. And that may be because, recent showrunners like Russell T and even Moffat, would set stuff up and it would come back in a later episode. And you'd be like, oh, Bad Wolf, that makes sense now. And all that. And some of those never panned out either. But at least they were re-encapsulated or, and all this. There were a lot of villains that just, it needed villains and it didn't get them. And the ones that they did get just kind of didn't pan out. And I think that was my problem with it. It was a lot of, there was some definite substance and there was some great acting done. And I think Chibnall brought out some great performances, from his actors. I just feel like the writing wasn't there overall, and for such an important onboarding season, let's get new people in, let's restart this, let's reboot. I don't think it had the oomph. I mean, it's obviously done well, audience wise, and definitely doing fine. But I think this could have put it over the top and could have shut up all the complaints had he really nailed it and brought it home. So that's my down.
Gotcha. Neisha, you had a little bit higher. You cut a TARDIS a little bit up. I think, what'd you say, 7.2?
7.2.
7.2. You have a little bit more positive side. Tell us some positive negatives and some Chibnall.
So, I actually agree a bit with what Mark is saying there. We just did an entire episode of one of our podcasts where we named it Doctor Who Season 11, villains, antagonists, enemies, or frenemies, because we were like, what are they? Are they villains? What are they in this season? Exactly what you're saying. I love the concept of having a very solid, objective villain, one that we can wrap our teeth around, and we do get that through the season. They are there, but then a lot of the concept of the enemy or the antagonist is built around story arc. It's built around environment and ambiance and situations, which I actually like because, well, hey, I am just, I kind of dig that kind of storytelling. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually happy with that, which you understand, right? I like take the situation, give us the story, let's see what the people are doing with the story. And I didn't like the bait and switch. I completely agree with that. There were so many points where I'm like, oh my God, bring that person back, bring that character back, bring that, and then we never see them again.
You're talking about the most recent episode, which I still am ready to take a shovel to Chibnall, metaphorically, and go, are you serious? I got you there. Alrighty. So, let me just lay down the line for Chibnall and my take. And I didn't even tell Sage my number, so I'm holding that until the very end. So, I think let me put 2 points out there, and you guys pick at this. Number one, I think it was a bad mistake to just disavow everything from the past. I do understand that he wants to do a reboot. But I think when it came to Russell T. Davies and Stephen Moffat, you can't just abandon 50 years and move forward. You can't go cold turkey and just say, you know what, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen. And we're going to have new stuff. And especially if you're going to bring in new stuff, as i.e. the villains, Tim Shaw, the guy from Rosa, which right now starts with a K that it eludes me, Krystal. You can't just bring in new villains and just have them nowhere near the stuff that Daleks, Cybermen, Satarans, everything from the past. I almost did the Trial of the Time Lord speech. Anyway, but it was, he didn't have what we need to do. If you're going to take everything out and put something else back in, you better have something just as powerful. And I even said that Krystal was a villain. That's one of my takes on it, that I think he had a chance to not only make this a powerful villain, which he already set the stage for, but to make it even more of an impact during the episode of Rosa. I also think, this is point number 2, I think Chibnall is a great drama writer. I'm saying that in bold letters because he is not a great sci-fi writer. Mm. So I'll let you two pick at that. Neisha, you want to... Neisha, if you want to start it, do you want to hit one of those two ideologies of mine? And what do you think?
Well, about him being a great drama writer? Versus
either one. Just completely rebooting Series 11 and just practically disavowing anything in the past almost, except for a Fez that showed up. So here, this is where we're going to be a little controversial. I actually don't feel that he disavowed everything from the past. Okay. And I've been watching since I was 13 and forever and a day since the Third Doctor. So I have had great fun and tried to finesse as much as I could with the episodes to find homages to the past. And I actually was able to do it a lot more than I expected to be able to do it. I don't feel that he disavowed. I have this philosophy that when we have a doctor, the doctor regenerates. The doctor becomes an entirely new being in one sense, but embodies and encapsulates all the personalities and the diversity of and the experiences of the prior doctors. So, of course, Jodie does a fantastic job. At the same time, the doctor has to have new experiences, otherwise it gets old, man. It just does. So I kind of dig that in this first season he chose to go so nuanced. Mm-hmm. I didn't like everything he did. Not at all. Obviously, I did not. But I gave some biting to it because I was like, okay, fine. We have another season. I'm hoping that this adversity to bringing in the old
physically bringing in the old will kind of go away.
But what I'm saying is that when it came to Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat, they brought in some stuff. The first episode of Christopher Eccleston was him in a leather jacket, completely new, and a young pop star teenager as a companion, something kind of new. But the classic villains, the Autons and the Nesting Consciousness were there to bring in the older audiences. And what I'm thinking, Mark, is that you can bring in the new, but kind of assimilate it with the old, so that people still know that it's Doctor Who, and still get the feeling of it. This series kind of threw it off for me, and I'm going to get your take on this, Mark, when we return, because again, we got to pay some bills as always. But when we return, we're going to continue our discussion about the Chibnall Conundrum, and Mark is going to answer that question for me when we return.
From the imagination of author Kevin J. Kessler, the Rosinanti dragons are no more. They have fallen into the obscurity of lore. Now warrior Valentine Beret and Seraphina, a magically gifted princess, are on a mission to save the world of Terra. Together they must face the Rosinanti legacy and combat the greatest threat their world has ever known. In the end, who is stronger, the man or the dragon? Find out in Kevin J. Kessler's The Rosinanti series on Amazon.com today.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com, or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
He's gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
Channeling the Mothership is an exciting journey into the higher mysteries. Certified psychic medium and clairvoyant Jerry McDaniel's readings, writings, and messages have been received by thousands of people in more than 45 countries. These messages have been obtained by channeling his higher self. How does he do it? Is it a blessing or a curse? And what lay beyond the reach of your five senses? Channeling the Mothership. Explore the mysteries of the spiritual and the metaphysical. Channeling the Mothership by author Jerry McDaniel. Available on Amazon.com today.
And welcome back, fellow Whovians. Welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show. I am Christian. I'm here with Neisha. I'm here with Mark, because he's going to answer, or at least try to answer. I don't even think I asked a question. I think I just gave a
It was getting there.
It was getting there. But I think the question is, what do you think about the take that I just gave as far as assimilating classic and new together, as opposed to just going full-on new, full-on cold turkey, and just not really having too much of classic Who to make it feel like it's in there?
I felt like they were trying to be even older classic Who.
Really?
I felt like the first episodes were, oh, look, this is our historical that, their first Doctor was about. Then they did an episode, oh, look, this is a class, this is a goofy monster, which was very much the Troughton era. And then they kind of did some, let's go back to Earthbound. So this is kind of, we're going back Pertwee a little bit. And I think that was kind of what I was getting from that, that, look, we do have these old shows, and we're doing these, and we're trying to do tributes to them but not bringing back any classic villains or anything like that. But yet they saved Daleks for the special. It was like, okay, you were exactly right. They should have thrown in something a little earlier for the old school fans, maybe. And definitely something for the new Who fans. I think that was what they seemed to be trying to distance themselves from, was Moffat and Russell Davies. To me, that's what it seemed like they were trying to distance themselves from.
Yeah, exactly what I was saying. There was a lot of homage to classic Who. You could easily find it, but you have to have known to look for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but from that point on, you go into the, well, okay, and again, it went back to writing. I think they were trying to do these things and just weren't doing it very well.
Well, I even argued on Earth Station Who podcast. I think Resolution in its form should have been the first episode. I think that should have been the appetizer to what the series should have been. or at least not the series, but the series should have been as fun. I think that should have attracted not only people who were fans of classic, but we're going to have a take on an old monster and how the Doctor is going to deal with it. And now we have the classic Whovians as well as the new Whovians all together watching a new Doctor being the first female to take on a classic monster. And to me, everybody had high energy from people talking from people I've talked to, and some of the responses is like, yeah, this definitely redeemed the last episode, the battle of the I can't pronounce something Kalos.
No, I still think we needed more Witchfinder and resolution, and a lot less of spiders and Donald Trump jokes.
Yeah, the Battle of Ranskor of Kolos. Yeah, the name I don't know.
They could have followed with the Battle of Betty. I would have accepted that even more. And not only that, they picked up on everybody knows how to say Raxacorical Phallopatoris because RTD made it fun in the script. And the Doctor and Rose are saying it over there. The battle over here is like, I don't even want to pronounce it. I don't care less there.
I think they only said it once in the whole episode anyway.
So, Mark, this question's for you, and it's actually not a question because you just pulled up arachnids in the UK, and I had made a comment about I don't want Trump marshmallows in my hot cocoa. What did you think about that comment? Now, let me add this to this because I want to also get to you, Neisha. One of the concerns I have, let me pose this in this question, is that Jody was asked in an interview, or at least, and I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember. It was one of the party episodes on BBC America. She was asked and told the host that Doctor Who is inclusive of everybody. And this was kind of parroted back, but going back to Capaldi, that Doctor Who is for everybody. So I posed this question to a couple people who kind of just didn't know how to answer. Let's say for a fact, and the first answer they told me was, well, if you have a Trump friend, they're not watching Doctor Who. And I said, shut up, let me finish. Let's say, for instance, if this is the case, and Jodie is being a representative of Doctor Who, and it's inclusive for everybody, and I have a friend, I don't want to get political, that is a Trump supporter, and she comes up and calls me up and says, hey, Christian, I know you're a big Doctor Who fan. I finally want to get into it, and I heard about this episode called The Arachnids in the UK. Yep. How would I respond back to my friend who is a Trump supporter, knowing that Jodie has said this is a show? Well, Peter said this is a show for everybody, and Jodie says this is inclusive of everybody. Here's an episode that doesn't seem that way. How would you two respond to my friend?
Honestly, I do think that this season there have been, as we've discussed in many of these episodes, there is a lot of backlash. That a lot of people are feeling that there's too much, messages. Let's hit them over the head with the message of the episode. Racism is bad. This is bad. This is bad. And they do it over and over and over again, and it is pretty heavy-handed, admittedly, in some of the episodes. Some a lot less. Capitalism can be bad or can be good. On that Amazon knockoff, Amazon Men on the Moon. I still can't. Kerblam. Episode. They did some odd takes with that, and I think that again is just Chibnall not really sure how to write this show to get his messages across. I mean, we talk about John Nathan Turner used to be pretty blatant in his hatred of Margaret Thatcher, and he would and the Thatcher administration, and he would write in a lot of stuff about them, but it was never. I mean, if you watched it and just stumbled on it, and you didn't know that. It was just, political, but you thought it was space politics. You didn't realize it was so on the nose. This is like, okay, we've got to dumb it down to everybody and just hit them over the head with it. So I think, that would be an episode that I don't think I could show somebody. I'd be like, if I know they have leanings that way, I'd be like, here, let's watch Witchfinders.
But this is but Neisha, this is my take on it, that Chibnall doesn't know how to write a bad guy. It was so, to me, you could have removed the Robertson character and kept the show going. You could have just focused on the spiders.
Oh, so I'm completely saying that. I agree. I think that so one of the main faults I have for the entire season, and with Chibnall, who I do agree writes a beautiful drama, and actually has the ability to write a sci-fi. He just has to stop piling on so many stories into one episode. I mean, when we find something we're interested in an episode, so many times we don't get an opportunity to really explore it, get any true connection to it, because it's come and it's gone. And I'd be like, oh my God, but we really didn't get to know that, and here it's gone again, you know. Mm-hmm. And I feel like with Arachnids, it was one of my absolutely most unfavorite episodes, and not for why everybody else might have thought so. I absolutely adore the concept of the Arachnids themselves. It's so sad. It's so sad. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, you're right. There's no reason for this guy to be there. Robinson made no sense to me. It could have been anybody. It didn't have to be this person who, by the way, is not a Trump supporter. He's just the antagonist to Trump who wants to do the same thing.
No, it was a double dipping. Not only is he a spoof on Trump, but then they're going to mention the name of this guy running against Trump. And I'm like, well, why is this even in here? I want to focus on the spiders. And
completely unnecessary.
And that goes back to what...
So much better if he really was Ed Sheeran. Just saying.
Okay.
And then even went back. I mean, I remember when Russell Davies did that whole thing with there was the master race episode where I forget which one that one was, where it was they were all talking about Obama was going to save the economy and all this, and that was just so weird at the time because they had the weird fake president years before that. Why did they suddenly start bringing in real world politics to it? And and that's something they've usually avoided in the past.
Well, this thing too, and when JNT mentioned that he didn't like Margaret Thatcher, here's my take on science fiction. Science fiction works well when you don't know what the moral is until it's over.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on because from the very core, from the very beginning, the second episode was Daleks, which was supposed to be a take on the Nazi party, but they didn't mention Nazis. They didn't have Hitler or Germany. They had Daleks. One of my favorite lines from a TV series I think is funny is Red Dwarf.
Nice.
And I consider myself a person of tradition and faith a little bit, not to the extreme as such, but I do value some of my parents' traditions and such like that. I'm Roman Catholic by birth, and some of the traditions I enjoy. Now, there was a line in the series that started at the beginning, I forget which episode in Red Dwarf, was that they found a copy of a page of the Bible that was ripped out by accident. And do you remember what I'm talking about? Right?
I know exactly what you're talking about, yes.
Neisha, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, there's a piece of the Bible that's missing, and it starts off with, all these characters are fictitious and are not to be taken seriously, or something to that effect.
And then and I think it was dedicated to Laura with love or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, I could see maybe where people are offended, but for me, I very am open-minded. I don't mind taking a joke. I like things to be challenged. I thought that was one of the funniest lines I ever thought. Nobody ever thought about that, and I think that was the brilliance of Naylor and Grant as far as writing Red Dwarf, that they could come up with some of these things. I've always compared it to if Douglas Adams wrote a TV series, he would have had Red Dwarf. But I think science fiction works when it is subtle, when it's not, as you say, Mark, coming and pounding you on the head with the moral. Because first of all, I've questioned this: does Chibnall understand his audience? We're Whovians. Yes, racism is bad. Yes, sexism is bad. Misogyny is bad. Taking things from people that you did not work for or deserve is bad. Why am I being railroaded with this? Tell me a good story. And one of the stories, I think, Neisha, way back when was, when I was talking to Andrew Cartmel, was the Happiness Patrol. That was a direct take on Margaret Thatcher. But they didn't use Margaret Thatcher. They used another person. They were using names like Helen A. and all that such. It's been a while since I saw the episode. But if you watch the story, you don't even know that you're being, that it's being enwrapped in you.
Right, exactly.
And I think for the best of it, like we discussed this on a previous show, Star Trek, they had an episode that was racism. It was Gorshin. I can't remember his name. The guy who plays the Joker.
Frank Gorshin.
Yes.
Gorshin.
He goes and he's painting himself one side white, one side black, and the other one side.
Episode.
Exactly. But we knew it was about racism, but it didn't come out there and bash anybody in the head. It had a great story. And I think for people who were looking at that, who may have been on the fence about things, who have an open mind, when they saw this, they're like, you know what, I think this stuff is bad. And they didn't have to go out full blunt force with, full blunt towards trauma with a hammer going, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. I encapsulated you in a story that wrapped around you, and I took you in, and I made it beautiful. Now, I'm going to let you decide whether things are what you take away from this. But what do you think, Neisha? Maybe I'm just talking out of,
I mean, the thing is there's a lot of content and context that you're referencing. If you're looking
Sorry,
at
I just...
and no, it's great, and I agree with what you said, because I know both episodes, and I understand that with the Happiness Patrol, we're looking at that, the parody of Thatcherism, and that episode of Star Trek, I think, was probably one of the most influential episodes, because it is extremely indomitable in terms of its message. And the thing is I want to ask everyone, what is wrong with changing the way that you present the rhetoric? Every single season of Doctor Who, and every new Doctor and every showrunner takes the rhetoric and changes it into a way that it's flexible. And I guess for me, I have no problem. And I'm a person who's lived on the other side of racism and genderism and misogynism. I have lived through all of that. It has been part of my existence. While I'm not a fan of getting hit over the head with things, but at the same time, is there anything inherently wrong after how many seasons of this beloved show to change the presentation of the rhetoric?
And that's a good question. We're going to hold... I'm sorry, Neisha, let's cut off because we're going to pay bills again. We'll be right back, and we're going to let you finish that question, and Mark and I are going to try to answer it when we return to The Legend of the Traveling Tardis.
From some of today's best-selling, award-winning authors comes 22 page-turning tales, Cursed Lands.
Cursed Lands will lead you through one doomed world after another in a haunting dystopian urban fantasy.
Join the courageous as they battle for survival across worlds where fae, vampires, angels, witches, and more roam freely.
Cursed Lands is coming soon on Apple Books, Kobo, and Nook.
Pre-order your copy for just 99 cents today.
How you doing, everybody? This is KG Bethlehem. I'm an author of a new book called Certain Moments of Time. It's a collection of short stories. These short stories range from post-apocalyptic, dystopian, anti-utopia, as well as general fiction. You can find Certain Moments of Time on sale at Amazon.com, where you can purchase the ebook format as well as paperbook format. You can also purchase it at Lulu.com, paperbook format, and will be on sale soon at BarnesandNoble.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. My name is Christian Basel. Welcome to our radio show. Thank you for listening to us on iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen up across the Whoniverse and beyond. I want to welcome my guests, Neisha, who had a final question there, and Mark Muncy. Neisha, go ahead and I heard passion in your question. That's why I was so upset to cut you off over there. But go ahead. Go ahead.
I knew we needed to pay the bills. So I am passionate about it because I have spent most of our season in our show, because our show, Doctor Who in Review, is just a little bit different than what everyone else does because we lend the flavor of diversely geek to it. So, of course, we're looking at acceptance and understanding of diversity. So it's definitely something that I'm going to be highlighting, right?
Yeah.
I have looked at every single episode of Doctor Who from the time I started watching at 13 in almost the same exact way. I look for certain things that make me as the fan and as the viewer, feel better. Feel that I understand something more. Mm-hmm. Feel that I'm happy and joyous. That makes me giggle, but at the same time, leaves me questioning something. Yes, I think that Chibnall hyped up exactly everything I just said. He hyped it up probably tenfold for this season to really throw it all in there and all at the same time. But inherently, man, is it not okay sometimes to change the way we present the rhetoric? Because for 99% of the other time, we've not done it this way. So is it wrong to try it a different way and see what happens? And then if it doesn't work and people don't cotton to it, then you go ahead and you try something and you go back to something old. I was okay with it, although I didn't love it all the time, especially with arachnids. That wasn't my sorry.
Mark, you want to take a shot at this? Because I do have a response, unless you got a response as well.
No, mine is just more of the same. That it's we've been saying all along that there are other ways to do this, and we are a smart audience, and I think talking down to us is one of the things that's angered a lot of people about the show, and I think that was one of the things Russell Davies did, and I think it's just that's something we've all Whovians have been upset about since day one. It's something us nerds like to complain about.
Well, actually, I know what you're saying there, Neisha, and I guess it's an attempt, but I also see it as Chibnall. Again, he's writing more drama than he is sci-fi. I think what makes sci-fi work is that you have a moral inside a wonderful story. I don't think it's the other way around, where you have a story wrapped around a big moral. And I think that's the difference with science fiction and drama. Otherwise, you're watching Broadchurch again. You could tell with the characterizations that he tried to develop throughout the series. No, go ahead. I mean, if you want to.
I was gonna say, I just did a rewatch on Starship Troopers, and I will say that I feel like that movie and as iconic and cultish as it is, it was a giant story wrapped around a moral. I watched it twice again just to be sure, because I wanted to go back and think about the age and time and timeism in terms of, or put a reference for Doctor Who, and in that, it is possible, and it does happen with sci-fi. It really does. It's just maybe it's not something we see as prevalent. Maybe.
No, and that's a good example. Starship Troopers was more drama with a bunch of big giant roaches, but I think the two of them complemented each other. Mm-hmm. Whether there was a moral in there, I didn't see as much. It was just a bunch of people, taking out another species that was trying to wipe them out. However, you got to see the stories. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got to disagree on that one. I do agree that they were pretty much heavy hitting again with that one. As Paul Verhoeven was totally taking down the right-wing dystopia he was picturing coming up. And it was, that's why they're all wearing freaking Nazi uniforms at the end. Yep. Neil Patrick Harris comes up in the Nazi uniforms, like, wait a minute, who's really the bad guy here?
Exactly. You got it, Mark. It's exactly what I'm saying. And again, so it does happen. It's not precedent setting that Chibnall's done it, but it's just maybe precedent setting at this level for Doctor Who.
No, that's okay.
But Christian said again, it was at the end that they flipped it, and that was what's so cool about it.
Let me reel it back in there because I know what you're saying there, Mark. I know what you're saying, Neisha, on the Starship Troopers things. What I'm reeling back is when we were seeing the movie, we saw the characteristics. They were so heavy on character and developing these characters and the relationships and how death and all these big things were coming up to them and how they had to deal with it in the mindset of what they had. And then you had the big reveal at the end. I'm like, oh, wow, damn. But but it was heavy character. And I think Chibnall is following that route because I loved what he did with Ryan and Graham.
Oh, yeah.
They were the hearts of the show.
Right. I mean, it was a complete turnaround when you had Turlough and Nyssa and Tegan. Not that they were bad. It was just that there was nothing really connecting with them. Nyssa would go out and get, taken by the Kinda, and Nyssa would pass out and faint, and Turlo was locked up in a dungeon because they didn't know what to do with these guys.
Yeah,
Here, we had more of a passion and real. Now, I think at the end, at the last episode of the battle, where the fist bump finally comes in, I think that was a little late, because I think that fist bump worked when he called him Graham.
Yeah.
But he did it then, so absolutely.
Yeah, when It Takes You Away was there, I think it was more thing. But let me actually do this. Let me have somebody discuss their vision of Doctor Who at a younger age. Back in 1980, where a bunch of fans actually went, there was a panel, and I think it was on a news show, I forget what show, and they actually challenged the current writers back then, Pip and Jane Baker and John Nathan Turner, and see if you can tell who this person is. Sage, you got the audio for that?
It could have been a lot better. It could have been slightly better written, especially the last story. Well, not only that, but it was also very cliched. It was very routine, running up and down corridors and silly monsters. It was perhaps a little too routine Doctor Who, very much what the audience is expecting, and it's not really very challenging for them to watch. Well, it was the story itself has been done in a different way in the past few years, very much a whodunit on board a space liner, and a very traditional sort of thing that people will expect Doctor Who to fall into. But I still felt that story was fairly boring.
Do you guys recognize who that is?
Oh yeah.
That's become an infamous clip now.
Yes, it has. For those of you who have not heard it, because I think there are a couple of friends of mine who didn't even know that clip existed.
That's a new one for me.
Mark didn't know about the clip. That is Chris Chibnall back in 1986, 1987, talking with a bunch of other fans. And I think what happened is that I think Pip and Jane Baker were on there to go like, oh, the fans are going to come out here and they're going to talk and they're going to, what was your favorite story and stuff like that? No, they got the third degree from Chris Chibnall, a young Chris Chibnall. Not only that, it also expressed it. John Nathan Turner came in on the phone and expressed his concerns, and it wasn't pretty. And this was, I think, around the time of the trial of the Time Lord, when they were introducing Mel. And this is Chibnall sitting and criticizing Doctor Who back then. So you two, I'm going to put you in Chris's seat, and Chibnall is the one sitting on that panel. Neisha, what would you tell Chris Chibnall on how to improve the show?
So a little known, really quick fact. Chris has that link is on his IMDb to be able to watch that interview. It literally is listed as trivia on his IMDb, so he knows.
Okay.
He knows it's there, and he knows people are going to be looking at it and going, Yeah.
But now you're the one sitting in the seat, and I'll give you a minute. Give me 1 minute. What would you tell Chris as far as what would you say if he was sitting in front of you?
So I would actually agree with some of his own points of views from his original video. I do feel that there were moments where the story was quite boring, where it wasn't connective. Mind you, I love it, right? And I'm a person who gave it a 7, but I do feel that there were points at which I felt let down. And as a long-term Whovian, how do you work with me? How do you address me as that fan who has a 42-year history and will see the story from a different point of view, but at the same time is completely ready and open to something new and generationally aware. So how do you, as a showrunner and a writer, look at addressing all of that? I'm interested in understanding that because,
Real quick, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but real quick, do you think Chris Chibnall took his own advice, or do you think he missed it?
Oh, so the first point of his interview where he's expressing his thoughts and why didn't you try something new? I would have liked to have seen new characters. I would have liked you to step away completely from the history and try something new. Well, yes, he did. He literally did exactly what he says to Pip and Jane. I'm telling you, it's almost word for word. I was like, oh, my God.
Gotcha. Mark, I don't mean to cut you off, but Mark, we got less than a minute. What would you do if you were sitting in that chair and Chibnall was the one on stage? What would you tell him?
Give more emotional beats for Graham because that actor is awesome and he's carrying the show. Let Jody have a freaking powerful speech and be the doctor. That would be my advice. Let her be the doctor instead of just letting her run around and just solve everything at the last second like usual, which is a little cliche.
Gotcha. Well, we're out of time there, folks. Just to let you know, my number was a 5 for Chibnall. You pretty much heard everything that I've said out here on this episode, and as well as all of our classic episodes. I've snipped in a couple things on Chris Chibnall. You can hear all of our episodes on iHeartRadio and iTunes. So I'm going to wrap it up. So my number is a 5 for Chibnall. I think he can do better. I've also expressed a lot of things that he could be working on. Just go on the classic stuff and give Jody some powerhouse stuff. I think he's holding her back to what she could really become as a doctor. Not that she's not doing well, but I think there's a lot more that he can do. Folks, we're out of time. Thank you for joining us. Neisha Mulchan, check her out on Diversely Geek. Check out of our Facebook page, on her Twitter account, and anywhere that she's out there. Check out Mark Muncy's Eerie, Florida, and all the books he's written on really great horror stuff here in Florida. Everybody also, folks, we're going to be at Central Florida Comic-Con. Check that out at centralfloridacomiccon.com. This is going to be January 19th to 20th at the RP Funding Center in Lakeland, Florida. Folks, we're out of time. Please continue to listen to us every week. We've got some great stuff coming up, including a special on Tom Baker for his birthday next week. So continue listening and continue to become part of the legend of the Traveling TARDIS.